Well, good afternoon, friends, and thanks for taking part in the G1 Supercard media call. G1 Supercard airs live from sold-out Madison Square Garden in New York City this Saturday, April 6th at 7:30 Eastern through traditional pay-per-view providers and free for all Honor Club members. Honor Club content can be streamed via the ROH and Fight TV apps and at ROHHonorClub.com. The historic event will feature a Ring of Honor World Championship ladder match as Jay Lethal defends against Matt Taven and the villain Marty Scurll. New Japan Pro Wrestling Switchblade Jay White defends the IWGP Heavyweight Championship against Kazuchika Okada. In total, 10 championships will be decided in addition to the Honor Rumble that will be featured on the pre-show starting at 6:30 Eastern. Today we have scheduled 20 minutes for each of our guests, both of whom have experience competing in the world's most famous arena, Bully Ray and PCO. Once I state your name and publication, I kindly ask that you keep it to one question per guest in order to keep things running smoothly and to give everyone a chance to participate. With that said, I'd like to introduce our first guest. At G1 Supercard, he will face Lifeblood's Juice Robinson in a New York City street fight. Please welcome Pro Wrestling Hall of Famer, Bully Ray.
You know who I am, guys? That was funny. You can all laugh now. All right. It's okay. Let's have a fun phone call, everybody.
That sounds awesome. Thank you. Let's start with our first question then, which I'm asking for Chris Featherstone from Pancakes and Power Slams, and of course, I have to do the requisite, like everyone. So, how are you today, Bully?
I'm great, thank you.
Oh, that's fantastic. Okay, when you previously left WWE, your career as a singles wrestler became stronger than ever. Currently, we still see the Bully Ray character give the fans what an old school heel should look like. Having this heel persona has significantly helped babyface career of Flip Gordon. How important is it still for the face-heel dynamic in the midst of a gray area fan base?
I think it's very important to have the heel-face dynamic in wrestling. It's one of the main foundations of the pro wrestling industry. It has worked from day one, and I think it can continue to work moving forward. I don't like my pro wrestling to be gray. I like my characters, my athletes, my performers, my wrestlers to have a clear-cut, definitive emotion and an emotional investment. I want to either love somebody or I want to hate somebody. And I don't believe that there is anybody in the wrestling business in the entire world who is better than being hated than me.
Oh, fantastic. Thank you. And I got one more for another journalist who unfortunately couldn't make it, from Under the Mat Radio. And he asks, what makes the New York City fan base so unique compared to others?
New York City is the capital of the world, in my opinion. Obviously, Madison Square Garden is the arena of arenas. That's why they call it the Mecca. And the New York City fan base, when it comes to professional wrestling, has always been extremely loyal and passionate. When you talk about some of the greatest wrestling fans in the world, New York fans are right up there with Philadelphia fans and Chicago fans. You know that when you perform in front of a New York crowd, you better bring your A game because they're not afraid to show you how they feel.
Okay, great. Thank you. Now we're going to go live to our press friends that we have on the line. So Sean Rossap from Fightful.com. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, thanks for taking the time to talk to us. You've competed at Madison Square Garden dozens of times. Am I right in that this is going to be your first singles match at Madison Square Garden?
To my knowledge, I do not believe I have ever competed in a singles match in Madison Square Garden, and this will definitively be the first time Bully Ray ever competes in Madison Square Garden.
So what does that mean to you, considering you've competed in that venue so many times? And if you do it next year, I don't know if you realize, across 4 different decades, if you all go back next year, what does that mean to you to be a fixture in such a historic venue, but still have the first?
I'll take the second part first. The next year I don't even think about, because who knows what's going to happen, next year. Hopefully Ring of Honor and Madison Square Garden and New Japan still continue to have a good relationship. Hopefully this event goes really, really well, and all parties want to do business again. As far as myself bringing Bully Ray to Madison Square Garden, it's a quote unquote bucket list thing that I only added to the bucket list recently once I saw that there would be an event at Madison Square Garden with all of the great Ring of Honor talent, with all of the great New Japan talent. I wasn't guaranteed a spot on the card. So I did, what I have to do character-wise, storytelling-wise, wrestling-wise, performing-wise, to make sure that I've earned myself a spot. So I'm proud of the fact that I was able to do that. And it is a big deal to me because I created the Bully Ray character. Nobody created it for me. I'm the one that moved the Bully Ray character forward. And I'm talking about when I originally invented it in TNA. This was my creation. And when you have your own creation in the wrestling business, and when you can bring your own creation to a show like the G1 Supercard, when you can bring your own creation to an arena like Madison Square Garden, it is a very good feeling and sense of accomplishment.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Sean. Next is Bill Pritchard from WrestleZone. Go ahead, Bill.
Hey, Bully, how you doing today?
Hey, Bill, what's going on, brother?
Not much. So, as someone who reinvented themselves at a late stage in your career, can you explain how you avoid growing complacent at this point?
I have entirely too much fun in the professional wrestling business to grow complacent. There are so many stories left to tell, and I love coming up with these new stories. And actually, I love coming up with these new stories that have been told maybe 100 times over, but I get to tell them in a unique, different way. Especially in pro wrestling these days, where heels are so afraid to get heat. I'm a heel I basically have no fear in the wrestling business, so I can do things that nobody else is doing right now. So that alone allows me to never become complacent, to continue to have fun. And I think one of the most fun things for me is that Ring of Honor, for me, is basically full circle of my career. Ring of Honor is ECW. I mean, Ring of Honor was created because ECW went out of business. The work ethic, the passion, the drive in Ring of Honor is something that I can understand and relate to, because that's what we did in ECW. So I feel like my career has, come full circle, and I am in a company that I belong in. And, a lot of people at first were like, oh, no, this is not going to work out. And they gave a variety of reasons why it wouldn't work out. But for those exact reasons is why it has worked out. Because Ring of Honor doesn't have a guy like me. And in any wrestling company, you need a variety. You can't just have wrestling match after wrestling match after wrestling match. You need some storytelling. After all, this is the storytelling business. And I would never want to take away from what Ring of Honor is doing, because those guys do what they do entirely too damn well. I just want to be able to add another aspect to Ring of Honor that other guys might not be as qualified to do.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Next is Gil Kuda from turnbuckle topics. Go ahead, Gil.
Hey, Bully, thanks for taking the time, man.
Hey, man.
So I just got to ask, I mean, since you had a lot of say in Bully Ray, you started the character yourself, and I know that Ring of Honor is normally encouraging of their talent to, I don't know about directly help with the booking process or so, but I just want to know where the idea for an open challenge street fight came from.
It came from me.
All right. You just figured I'll jump in with somebody and we'll pull some crazy spots and wow everybody.
So let me ask you this: are you intrigued by the open challenge at all?
I'm always intrigued by an open challenge. I have to say, I mean, I'm thrilled you're facing somebody like a Juice Robinson who's proved himself a million times over, especially recently. But I just love the concept of a surprise, of just you don't know who's walking out.
And there you go. You know, Juice has stepped up and he's accepted, and this is a huge moment for Juice. You know, it would be a huge moment for anybody. Hell, if Hulk Hogan issued an open challenge in Madison Square Garden, I would be the first one to jump up and say, yes, I'll answer the challenge, because there's an opportunity right there that I want to take. You know, when you look at the entire card, what is the one constant in every match? You're going to get a great wrestling match, a great wrestling match, a great wrestling match. You don't know what you're getting in my match. You don't know what's planned. Hell, I don't even know what's planned half the time. I'm just going out there and winging it, just like Terry Funk did, 30 and 40 years ago. And in no way am I comparing myself to the greatness of Terry Funk, but he's one of my idols, and that's basically the way I handle myself when I'm performing. Anything can happen at any given time, and most of the time, it does.
All right, Bully, thanks.
You got it, man.
Thanks, Gil. Next, James Walsh from Wrestling Epicenter. Go ahead, James.
Hey, Bully, it's a pleasure to talk to you. How you doing today?
James, how are you, buddy?
I'm doing okay. So my question was for you, was actually going to mention Terry Funk, but since you already said it, I won't mention his name. I'm just going to ask you, as the guy who's been there, who's done that, who's been in Madison Square Garden, we've interviewed guys like Jeff Cobb, who said he's going to have tears coming down his eyes at the idea of even wrestling in Madison Square Garden. Have you given any advice to some of the younger guys who are getting their first taste of the Mecca?
Some of the guys that have asked me about it, and some of the other interviews I have done, I've given really the same two pieces of advice. Number one is, when you go through that curtain, take a moment to smell the roses. Take it all in. Stand there, look out into the crowd, realize that you are performing in Madison Square Garden, and realize that you belong there. And give yourself a mental pat on the back, because if you're on that card and you're standing in that arena, you've earned it. So take time to give yourself some credit for your accomplishments. I think in the wrestling business, things get a little too negative at times, and we don't take the time to really, maybe tell one another how, proud we are of each other, or what kind of a great job each other has done. But we can take the time to appreciate our own moment. So for everybody who hasn't performed there before, from Okada and Tanahashi to the cheeseburgers of the world, take time to smell the roses. The second thing I've told them is, be prepared for an uncontrollable shot of adrenaline that will overcome you when you walk out there. And that adrenaline rush is so intense that you actually black out for a second. And it's very easy for that adrenaline to take over your mind so much that you don't even remember what happens. And it's a pretty crappy feeling to not be able to remember what happened, especially if you're, performing in Madison Square Garden. So it's like, go out there, take a deep breath, smell the roses, get your composure, pat yourself on the back, go to the ring, and try to steal the show. And every single match should put a gun to every other match's head and say, go try to follow that. Thanks, man.
Thanks, James. Next, Jeff Martin from bodyslam.net. Go ahead, Jeff.
Hey, Billy. Thanks so much for your time. So obviously going to Juice Robinson, and he's your opponent, you know who it is. Is there anyone in the back of your mind that you wish kind of did answer that open challenge, or is Juice Robinson going to be a suitable opponent for you?
Who would you have liked to see answer the open challenge?
Like I said, I was up for a surprise, but I think Juice Robinson to me is he's hot right now, and I think that would be a great matchup between you both.
There you go. I mean, Juice took the bull by the horns. He stepped up. He's going to get an ass kicking. I mean, and every single one of you know that. You know that on shows like these, I mean, it's in New York and it's in Madison Square Garden. And no matter what, I'm going to make an impression. And I'm going to probably make an impression on his chest and on his face. And he's going to get his ass handed to him. But, hey, man, kudos to him for having the balls to step up. And I will leave you with this. And this is really open-ended. Just because Juice answered the open challenge doesn't mean that other guys couldn't answer the open challenge. Who knows? I didn't say it was an open challenge singles match. Who the hell knows if anybody else decides to tell the music guy to hit my music? I can tell you this. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be different. It's going to be hard-hitting, and it's going to be fun.
Looking forward to it, man.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Jim Varsalone, Miami Herald. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, thanks, Bully. Did you ever think you'd see the day a wrestling promotion not named WWE would be at Madison Square Garden? And what do you think of the state of pro wrestling today?
No, Jim. This was even a shock to me, and I don't shock easily at all with pro wrestling because I've seen so much stuff happen, and even the most shockings of things, I kind of just brush off like, yeah, man, hey, it's pro wrestling. Anything can happen. But going into this, I mean, it's sacred ground. I don't mean to sound cliche. I mean, this is Vince McMahon's grandfather's building. This is Vince McMahon's father's building. This is Vince McMahon's building. Nobody runs Madison Square Garden. And I think that just the planets lined up. There was a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. Kudos to Ring of Honor for having the guts to pick up the phone and saying, hey, we'd like to run a show in your building. We'd like to do business with you. And kudos to Madison Square Garden for taking the call and saying yes, because I believe just the fact that there's a different wrestling promotion in the Garden on that night, it's historical. I mean, it really could have been any wrestling company, and it would have been historical. I'm happy that it's Ring of Honor in New Japan, and I'm happy that I'm going to be a part of it. So, yeah, Jim, I mean, I think everybody was shocked. You know, I think Vince McMahon was shocked. I don't think Vince ever saw this coming. So, I mean, that answers part one of your question. And part two of your question, the state of the wrestling industry. I gauge wrestling by fans' interest. And the fans right now are extremely interested in all companies. I mean, let's face it. WWE is going to do the business that they do and that they will always do. WrestleMania, 80,000 people, sold out. Ring of Honor is such a unique company with a unique fan base who has, for 17 years, has been giving their fans what they want to see. Obviously, AEW on the horizon. You got to give Cody and the Bucks credit. They were able to tap into a demographic of wrestling fan that probably thought that they were forgotten about. And look at the business that they're doing. Look at all the independent shows that are running WrestleMania weekend. And I don't really think it's that big of a deal that it's WrestleMania weekend and these shows are running. Good for them. You always go where the fans are going to be. I mean, I look at it as like, I know this is going to sound a little stupid, but if you ever watch the show Deadliest Catch, it's all about catching crabs. Well, if one boat is catching 100 crabs an hour and the other boat is catching 0 crabs an hour, the boat that's not catching any crabs is probably going to go to where the boat is catching a lot of crabs and then drop their traps and catch crabs also. And that's what this is. You know, WrestleMania comes to town, and everybody knows that that's where the fans will be. Ring of Honor New Japan's a different story. They're not running an indie show. They're running Madison Square Garden, and they sold it out in like record-breaking time. The WWE hasn't sold out the Garden in a long, long time. So with Ring of Honor and New Japan, I don't think it's a question of them scooping up, you know, excess WrestleMania fans. I think they're catering to their fan base and are going to give their fan base the show that they want.
Thank you, Bully. Great Deadliest Catch reference, too. Appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. Always a pleasure, my friend.
All right, thanks, Jim. All right, next, Mike Johnson, PW Insider. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Bully, how are you?
Who's this? Who? Mike who?
Yeah, you know. How are you, sir?
How you doing, Mike?
Good. You brought up the ECW Ring of Honor comparison earlier, so I'm curious, as someone who was in that ECW locker room leading into Barely Legal, the first pay-per-view, and seeing all the carnage and the fighting and the injuries and everything that happened in that time period with ECW, compare the energy and the chaos there to what the locker room is like for Ring of Honor over the last couple of weeks, knowing that MSG is on the horizon, and compare the crop of talents who are there in Ring of Honor to the guys and the women who were in the ECW locker room in the late 90s. Is the energy similar? Is Ring of Honor maybe a little bit more nuanced because it's a more corporate entity compared to ECW? How do you compare the two?
I believe the energy level is the same. Obviously, the guys and the gals over the years have changed a lot with the way they conduct themselves in a locker room or as professionals or as personally. So I think it's more controlled passion, controlled energy. I think everybody is chomping at the bit to go out there and, do the best they can. In ECW, and you were there probably in the front row, that locker room, we were like caged animals that just couldn't wait to get out and show the world who we were. Everybody knows who Ring of Honor and New Japan is. Now it's just time to go into the Garden and steal the weekend. With ECW being on pay-per-view, it was such a big deal because these rebels, these rogues, these guys and gals that were kicked to the curb were finally able, as Paul said, to get to the dance. And pay-per-view for ECW was the dance. And Madison Square Garden for the Ring of Honor locker room and in the New Japan locker room is the dance. Yeah, you may have performed in front of 50,000 people at the Tokyo Dome, but it's still not Madison Square Garden. As they say, the Garden will always be the Garden. The Ring of Honor guys, the New Japan guys, they're going to be out to, have a great show. And everybody's going to want to steal the show. In ECW, we were out to prove a point. And we did prove a point. And we changed the wrestling business forever. And I've said it before, and you've heard this, Mike. ECW was the Napster of the pro wrestling business. Napster went out of business, but changed the way we listen to music forever. ECW went out of business, but changed the way wrestling moved forward forever.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yep. Hello.
Did we lose Mark?
Hello. I guess we lost Mark. If you guys got questions, go ahead and ask them.
Hey, Bully, This is Nick from Wrestling Inc. How are you doing?
Hey, Nick, how are you, buddy?
I'm good. I was going to follow up on all the nice things you said about Juice. How do you feel about the new crop of Ring of Honor talent that's come in and filled the void of a lot of the talent that left at the end of 2018?
I am going to reserve judgment until they can get a good amount of time underneath their belts, and see if they can get themselves over. As individuals, I think it's a huge opportunity. When any talent gets an opportunity to come into a wrestling company like a Ring of Honor or a WWE, anyway, NXT, Impact, you name it, there's always that feeling out period. There's always that proving, time to prove yourself. So let's see how these new talents get over. Let's see how the fans take to them. So if you ask me this question in a year from now and you say, how are these guys doing? I can probably give you a better answer. I can tell you this, as far as the younger guy, the newer guys, like Bandito, night one was super over. PCO, who you guys are going to be talking to, super over. I think those are two personalities that the Ring of Honor fan base is taken to immediately.
Cool. Hey, thank you so much.
You got it, man. Who else?
Okay, I think maybe my phone went bad. Anyway, we're good. Was that Mike or was that Nick? Sorry about that.
That was Nick.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Okay, next we got Stu Byrick, and thanks for everyone for stepping up in that little situation. Go ahead, Stu. This is going to be our final question. Go ahead, Stu.
Bubba Ray, good to talk to you.
Thanks,
I have
Stu.
a quick question. Besides the wrestling, of course, you are co-host of Series 6 Unbusted Open. I wanted to find out what you have learned about wrestling fans through your work with Dave LaGreca that maybe you didn't realize before.
No, I think Daniel Bryant said it best. They're fickle. Fickle, I tell you, fickle. I'm really not surprised by anything. Recently I've seen things that really have me scratching my head, like such a huge majority of this fan base with this Ronda Rousey hate and stuff like that. You might not like Ronda Rousey, the person. I get it. But, man, the girl has busted her ass since she's got in here. I mean, we had Natty Neidhart on the show the other day, and Natty's basically telling everybody that Ronda has paid her dues. She's done it the right way. I think she's earned the respect of the locker room. But yet you just have a lot of people that just don't like her. So I think I don't so much – I guess there's a little bit of learning in fans are – they might be even more passionate today than ever. And I'm just going to say they might be, because I believe fans know what they like and they know what they want. And I think that if they don't get it, they're more liable to complain about it because they now have a voice through social media. 20 years ago, if fans didn't like something, well, you could show up to the arena and you can boo somebody, and that's really the only way you could voice it. Or you could write a letter to the wrestling magazine or to the local federation, but that normally fell on deaf ears. With social media now, they can voice their opinion about what they like and what they don't like, and sometimes I'm shocked by what they don't like. And I think that sometimes fans put wrestling under too big of a microscope, and they don't allow themselves to sit back and be entertained. I do believe that some fans have become too smart for their own good. If I go see a magician perform, I really don't want to know how he made Tommy Dreamer the elephant disappear. You always got to get in the obligatory Dreamer joke, right, guys?
Absolutely.
My advice to fans would just be, enjoy the ride more, man. It's pro wrestling. It's supposed to be fun. We don't have to destroy it. I mean, there's nothing wrong with analyzing it and discussing it, which we do on Busted Open, and I try to do with fans. I really try to make, on Busted Open, I try to explain things to make things more palatable for fans, and they can understand what creative, was thinking when they put something together. And then sometimes I go on the show and I say, man, this clearly did not make sense to me. Hopefully I answered your question as far as what I've learned from being on Busted Open.
You did. My sentiments exactly. Thank you, Bully.
You got it.
All right. Thank you. And thanks, Bully. That's all the time we have for him. And
Did everybody get to, hold on, Mark, did everybody get to ask their question, yes or no?
I believe that's a yes. Yeah, we
good.
got through everyone. And I think everyone would agree with me. And personally, it's under your learning tree. It was fantastic.
No problem, Mark. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you being on the line. Have fun, whether you're coming to the show or watching the show. And take care, and I'll see you down the road.